Today we are talking about cloud variables in Scratch. So what are cloud variables? This is a special kind of variable which you can create here in the variables section. Make a variable. So I will make a variable. First I delete existing one here with delete so that we just have one variable if we make a cloud variable. So here you choose which name you want for your variable. And this is the important part here. The checkbox cloud variable stored on server. And the explanation already says it. The important thing here is that this variable or the value is stored on the Scratch server. Why is that important? It is important for multiplayer games so that you can store values on the server and more than one client can get the value. And these variable values are synced across all the players here in this case. So if you check this here, you will get a cloud variable and we can name it like player X because this is what we want to show first. What I want to show first is how to synchronize the X position across multiple clients, across multiple players here. So let's just use player X for now and make sure that you check this cloud variable. But the problem here could be that you are a new Scratcher and new Scratchers cannot use cloud variables. So you have to be a normal Scratcher. You have to upgrade from new Scratcher to normal Scratcher, and then you can use the cloud variables, and you can do that in your profile, and they will ask you some questions and tell you the community guidelines, and you have to make sure that you check everything there. And then if you did this, if you upgraded from new Scratcher, then you can use this checkbox here, and before it won't be there, so don't look for it. If you are a new Scratcher, then you have to wait until you make certain projects, maybe 1-2 projects, share the project maybe, something like this, and then you can use cloud variables here. So if you have this checkbox, you can make cloud variables. So let's click on OK. And now we have a warning or a note here. Please note cloud variables only support numbers, not letters or symbols. And there's a reason for that, so that you cannot spam other players with messages that are maybe not appropriate. So that's why they have restricted the type to number. And that could be a problem, as we will see. But first, let's focus on this new variable. You can also see that it is a cloud variable here because it has this cloud here in front. So here's our cloud variable, and you can of course set it to a value. So let's do this. Events, when flag clicked, we set this to 0, let's say, and we can use this here for example in a forever loop. So let's drag a forever loop here, and then we can maybe go to X. So let's go to X and Y here and our cat, or we can also go to a random position. That's also possible. So let's go to a random position. That would be better, I think. And then we can update our cloud variable, our new cloud variable here, to the X position of the player here, of this cat sprite. So let's go to motion. And here we have the X position. So this X position will of course be random because here we glide to a random position. So let's check if this works. And yes, it works. The cat glides to a random position in 1 second. And we can also see that here the player X, this is updated. Okay, nice. So what's the deal with this cloud variable? For this, of course, we have to make a second client here. So we can go to a different browser tab. So here we have this project once again, the project page, but here we can also play it. So here you can see the player X variable. It's a cloud variable, so it should be the same as here. So we can run it here in the editor inside the project, or we can run it here. And you can also see that here this value is updated quite frequently. and it will be updated whenever the cat reaches the destination here. And then we call this set player X to, and then the X position. So far, this is not very interesting because each of these clients here set this random X position here. So the cloud variable is always set from this client, and then it's set from this client. So we need to distinguish between this client here and this client. So first player, second player. How can we do that? There are different ways, but let's keep it simple. So we make an event when space key pressed, we can set a variable, and then we know that this is, for example, the second player. So let's set a variable. We make a variable here, and this doesn't need to be a cloud variable. It's just a local variable. It's not local to the sprite, but it can be local for all sprites. So just call it player, let's say player number. We can set it to 0 at the start here. And then whenever the space key is pressed, for example, then we can set it to, let's say 1. So then it's the second player. The first player has the value 0 and the second player has the value 1. Okay, so save it. And here we can reload and start it. And here we can see player number is 0. Here also, if I started, player number is 0, of course. And then I go to this tab here and then press the space bar, and then the player number is 1. So now we can distinguish between this client here and this client, because the player number is 0 in this case and 1 in this case. Okay, so let's go to the code again. And now we can say if else. So control if else, and we check for the player number to be 1. And if this is the case, we do something. And if it's not the case, in the else case, then the player number should be 0. Then we do something else. So in the case where the player number is 0, we leave it like that, glide in 1 second to random position, set the cloud variable to set player X. And in the other case, yeah, what do we do in the other case? We set the X position. Let's stop this here. We set the X position of the cat. We set X to what? To the cloud variable here. So player X. Okay, so if we press the space bar, for example, here in this player pressed the space bar. So this cat here should then follow this cat here. So let's try that. So let's first save it here. We can start it, and then it will always come to this else case here. Glide 1 second to random position, and then set player X to the X position of the cat. And here we reload this tab. And at first, this is the same case because player number is 0 here. And here player number is also 0. So now I press the space bar here. And then we can see that the cat is jumping to the X position of this cat here. So wherever this cat ends up, this cat will also go. It's not a gliding motion, of course, because we are setting X immediately to this player X. So what you can see is that the player X cloud variable is synchronized across these two clients here, across these two players. And of course, this is the way to make multiplayer games. So everything for multiplayer games needs to go through this. You can make more here. And also there is this restriction that a cloud variable can only be a number. So there's no text allowed. And we will see that this is really a problem if you want to synchronize X and Y. So we can do this right now. So we go to make a different variable, another variable here. So check cloud variable again. And this time it's not player X, but player Y. And okay. So we have two cloud variables here. And here we set the second one to, of course, Y position. So let's go to Y position. This is here. Put that here, and this needs to be, of course, player Y. Okay, so now we are setting here player X, player Y. These are cloud variables to X position and Y position of the cat, which will be, of course, random, the random target positions of this gliding motion here. And the second cat here, if the space bar is pressed, then this cat should go to this position then. So of course we need also to set Y here. So let's drag this block, set Y2 into this if clause here. And then we need to set it to the cloud variable, the second cloud variable we have created. So set X to player X and set Y to player Y. And this is done in the case when the space bar was pressed. And in the other case, when the space bar wasn't pressed, we are setting the cloud variables to the X and the Y position. Okay, so let's check how this looks like. First, we need also to save here and to reload here. And we are starting this client here inside the editor and this also. Okay, so now we are in this case always set X to player X, set Y to player Y. No, sorry, in this case. And we want to switch to this case. So in the second client here, we want to switch to the player number 1. So press the space bar. And now this cat will follow all the target gliding motion positions of this cat. So wherever this cat ends up, this cat will go. But in this case, it's not a gliding position, but it's immediate. Okay. So nice, but you can also see that this is kind of strangely jerky here. So you can see that it's always like setting X and then setting Y. So, and that's a problem we need to solve. Why is that? The problem is here because setting the Y position or the X position here in the cloud variable takes a little bit of time to synchronize to the other players, to the other player in this case, because we only have 2. So it will take some time to synchronize this here, this variable, or the value of the variable, to this client here. So this is kind of something like 0.1 seconds. So it's a tenth of a second, maybe more. So you cannot be sure how long it takes. It's something like a tenth of a second. So this will be delayed. The synchronization of this value will be delayed by a tenth of a second. And also this, of course. So this is set to the cloud variable, but then a tenth of a second later, this is received here and the same here. So there is a delay of 0.1, approximately 0.1 seconds. And this is what you can see here. So I'm once again pressing space, and here we are setting the cloud variables, and you can see that it's setting first X to the new coordinate and then Y to the new coordinate. And this is not at the same time. So this is the jerky motion here. So it's first setting X and then setting Y. And this is what you can also see here. So it's also rendered, and this is the problem here. So how can you get rid of this stepwise setting of X and Y? You can get around this. This is kind of a workaround by just setting one cloud variable. So we need to use just one instead of 2. So if we can manage somehow to get both the X and the Y position in one variable, so let's say in this variable here, so let's call it, rename it to player XY, and we are able to put both coordinates here inside this value. This will be, of course, received here in one step. and we can set X and Y in one step, in one iteration here, inside one loop iteration. We can set both X and Y to the correct values. But at the moment we are setting two cloud variables, and this is the problem. And this creates this delay that you have seen. Okay, so this is a topic for another video, but you have seen how you can use cloud variables to synchronize, for example, X and Y position of this cat here, of all the players. And that's also a problem. So if you have more players than 10, then it's getting a little bit more difficult to synchronize all the positions, for example, and everything that needs to be synchronized. That's a topic for another video. This was only the introduction to cloud variables. And if you have questions concerning cloud variables or comments, please comment down below. And I would appreciate a thumbs up, or maybe you want to subscribe to this channel. See you in the next video.